I'm not even going to be looking at the chat or anything like that because I just really want to talk to you.
All right.
So, just to start, nobody's here yet, but I don't really care because I just want to get talking to you and they'll filter themselves in. What is like your worldview? Like, how do you view the world and your place in it? Is that a very broad question?
Yeah, that's really
It's an open question, yeah.
How do I view the world? I don't know. It's a planet.
Okay, so I'll tell you how I view the world and my place in it, and then that might give you a starting place, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I view the world as an environment where like lots of human beings are engaging in various power dynamics, right? And we're all positioning ourselves every day, whether that be in a sexual relationship, a business relationship, us and the teller at the bank. We're constantly positioning ourselves in just power dynamics and playing submissive or dominant roles. And the way things are currently, I feel that you have people who use brute force to get what they want, right? And those people carry a white face. And what they're doing is they're moving about in the world and they're using their force to engage in taking a dominant stance over people, right? So when I view myself in that space, I like to think, one, my attitude toward life and people is very unifying, right? I love my people, so I work to unify them. I'm very focused on children. So I view my place as giving life to children and also supporting and nurturing children, be they my own or other people's. And I view myself as a person who is submissive, like agreeable in most ways, but also in that I'm able to reach a lot of people and bring a lot of people together just because of how I handle them naturally, right? So that's how I view the world and my place. Obviously, you'll view the world and your place in it totally differently. So how do you see the world and your place in it? I don't know if that helped open it up for you to see where I'm coming from with that question.
I see the world as a beautiful place. Centered around it is what it is. To me, that's the way I get through it. It is what it is. Things happen. Things are the way they are for many reasons, and I don't. For myself, I have what I consider to be a deeper understanding. I even say deeper. I have a decent understanding of what's going on, and with that, I let that motivate me for what I see. What's going on in the world, and give me direction for what my goal set should be. Me as an individual, I don't really see anybody as special. I think you make yourself special, and your time and space make you special. The things that go into who you are, all of those things in time and space make you special, but you're just a, composition of multi-million billions of atoms that were somewhere else millions of years ago, 1,000 years ago. And while they're in your specific time and space, that's what gives them their special, I guess that gives it that specialness. So to me, the here and now, your influence on the here and now and what you do after, and when you're no longer here is, for me, like how I kind of view the world. This you could be dead any day. Like I could have this conversation, walk to the store and get clapped. You know what I mean? I can get hit by a car. I could be walking with something that's gonna kill me in 10 years and don't even know it. That's life, and you don't cry over it. You just look at the world as what it is, and it is what it is. Push, stay focused. History has taught us who our enemy is and what our focus should be, or rather what my focus should be, and that's empowering my people worldwide, developing programs and businesses and initiatives to empower my people and enhance them to be able to, be prosperous and create a future that we design. It's pretty much where I'm at.
So who do you consider to be your people? Is that Black people?
Yes, ma'am.
And who are Black people? I'll tell you what I mean by that, if that's not super clear. For example, in South Africa, the leader of Black First Land First and their members, who have a very revolutionary viewpoint, they consider the East Indians that were bought there as slaves to be part of Black people. So they move with them as a unit. So who do you consider to be Black people when you're talking about allegiances worldwide and bettering your people worldwide?
Black folk that look like Black folk, African descent, Aboriginal descent. Yeah, that's kind of where it is. And you have to be, you know, of the cloth mentally. There's a lot of us that's just brain dead and walking zombies. So just because you Black don't mean that, you know, I'm automatically with you. We're just, you know, able to visually see that we may be on the same page. I'm for Africans. I'm a Pan-Africanist. I am for the empowerment of Aboriginal people who are of the African mindset, where that all Aboriginal people and the original people of the planet are one people, and our, you know, our melanin, our physical features, our, you know, phenotypes, our cultural artifacts, all these things, you know, show how we, you know, we're connected, and that's who my people are. But I'm not going to try to, you know, push anybody into the boat that don't belong in the boat or don't want to be in the boat.
Is it enough for a person? I know mindset has something to do with it, but let's say the mindset's right. What if their skin is just dark? So there are people in India who are very dark, and then there are the native people of that land who, for all intents and purposes, look Black. Does it extend to remote parts like that? There are people in Japan that are native to the land that also look Black. Does it extend to those individuals too?
That's why I said Aboriginal. You know, the Aboriginal people, the original people, you know, the Africans who traveled to, like, you know, the Andaman Islands, the Sentinelese Islands in India, you know, the Jargon people of Japan, the original people that, you know, inhabited the Polynesian Islands, the original people in Australia. Those of them who understand that they're ancient Africans and ascribe to the facts that we're connected and we were all once in Africa, and our Aboriginal family has transversed the planet for almost 100,000 years. You know, if they're of that mindset, then yes, we all together. But you know, there's some people who rather, and that's because of white supremacy and the information they've been taught in the media's portrayal of Black people and Africans, where a lot of them, you know, some people try to just, you know, disassociate themselves from African. I'm not trying to reassociate with you.
I want to ask you, who is white also? Who do you consider to be white?
Come on, boss, son. Let me make sure my mic is corny. Get out of here, son.
Oh, I'll use this. Appreciate it.
Corny ass Yeezys, man. I'm sorry. Nah, nobody here. I locked it down. I'm on Eagle Eye right now, son. Yo, can you, yo, bro, take the hat off the camera, son. All right, which car? My bad. Who is white?
Who's white?
So you have the people I just said, us, and then everybody else.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I consider everybody else white too.
You know what I mean? So like, even Black folk, there's Black folk that as soon as you start the conversation, we trying to save everybody, use a cracker. You know what I'm saying? Like, you come over here kicking that other stuff. Because in New York, there's tons of people here. You know, I grew up with all types of people, Egyptians, like when everybody says Middle Eastern, like, just like we say Asian, like I can't tell the difference between certain people from Asia. Yeah, I sort of can tell the difference between a Korean and Chinese person and Japanese, but it's not the easiest thing for me to still, you know, pluck out. But like somebody from the Middle East, you know, people are just like, yo, y'all all Arabs. Like, nah, that person's from Yemen. This person's Saudi Arabia. This person's from Egypt, and they all got different vibes and stuff. So, you know, where I grew up, I was extremely multicultural. So I got a vast introduction to, you know, peoples of the world.
So when we talk about your goals for our people, Can you specifically speak on like where you would want to see our people move? And can you also speak on why you want to see our people move there? And I suppose that would tie into, because you brought this up earlier, the oppression of our people.
So you said we want to see our people move?
Yeah, you said you want to see our people progress in certain ways.
Yeah.
So yeah, what specifically are those ways and why?
One, that's the purpose of Black Power. Black Power, and you know, it's funny, today I was redefining Black Power again in my head, and the synergy. You know, when we talk about power, got to be energy and the ability to move things over time. So the synergy that's created when people are working together to empower each other and to enhance each other's life creates a force and a momentum that just drives, you know, prosperity. And for me, that's what Black Power is about. So just being able to inspire continuously and always know that we set up things to enhance our people, and that's our code of always empowering and enhancing and helping and healing our people. We don't, you know, who knows where the future can take us with that. But long as I know that that's ingrained into us in everything we do, that's where I'm at.
But there are ways that you're doing this, right? I know, like you do youth work. Are there other things, like specific things that you are passionate about outside of that, that enable that move toward empowerment of our people?
What I consider, yeah, you know, what I do with my nonprofit and the things we organize in there is multiple points, from financial literacy, youth development, adult literacy. Those are some of the things we offer here. Health awareness. You know, these are basic things that should be consistent. For me, that's just entering the playing field. Going past that, we're being able to do it on a way bigger level, in the sense of, you know, we employ people, we have contracts we could, you know, be able to provide people with. We're able to train people on a level where that they can, you know, train people to get certain certificates and actually be in place where certificates can be acquired at. These, you know, like modern things that, you know, just in the sense of today's society, things that I'm doing and plan on continuously doing to empower and enhance our people. We need locations. We need places where we can talk at freely, build, and share ideas consistently and continuously, almost like what we do on YouTube, you know, physical locations. To grow it from there, you know, these things would be duplicated. So for me, anything I do, I think I try to do it in a way where I could duplicate it, and it could be, you know, taught to somebody else and they can replicate it and do it on their own. So, you know, again, you know, you could do what I'm doing and I can show you everything I'm doing, and you could do it where you're at, or somebody else can do it where they're at. And we can keep these things growing like that.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I get it?
No, I kind of want to go two different directions with this. So part of me wants to go to financial literacy and why that is important, and to you. And then the other part of me wants to go a totally different direction. But let's start with financial literacy. I think that I can see the importance in it if there's an investment in this system, right? And so if I feel like our people aren't going to move in any sort of aggressive way to revamp this current system, then you do have to be literate in the game that you're choosing to be involved in, right? However, my preference would be that we would move to dismantle the system and build a new one. When you talk about financial literacy for our people, what is the benefit that you see in that? Like, what are they to do with that? What's to be built on top of that?
I mean, it's just reality. You know, today being healthy, when in health class, to me, financial literacy is part of health. You know, when you look at the one of the biggest contributors to relationships breaking down and marriages breaking up is financial literacy and financial hardships. When we look at, you know, what happened with Detroit, what happened with, you know, many poor Black cities or cities that were inhabited by a lot of Black people who were undereducated, especially in the field of finance. The last market crash decimated our communities. Like, the only thing that saved a lot of the homes in Detroit was setting them on fire. And everybody goes in and wonder, like, everything looks like it's burnt down. It's because that was the only way these people can get out of their homes. And financial literacy protects us from that. And it's not just financial literacy in the sense of, in this society, is being acclimated to the formalities of business in any society. And for example, the Jews, yes, they've been in cracker societies, but, you know, their stories go from Egyptians, they go from Sumerians, they go from all these different people, and their ability to maintain their people and have an understanding of finances is, you know, tantamount to who they are. And I think, you know, the Chinese approach at financial literacy, you know, with their discipline, with their ability to tie their productivity to their education and to their work habit, you know, and also to their discipline in not spending and being able to be frugal, and also, you know, help them get to where they are as a country. When we look at these things, we just have to say, like, this is it's a lifestyle. So in today's lifestyle, being acclimated to like scientific literacy is needed. Being acclimated to financial literacy is needed. So even if white people left, having a contract between two people is not white people, that's African. Having a court that determines whether or not your money is good, that's African. The decimal system that we use is African. Although Arabs are the ones who introduced it, in algebra and all of that's Arabic, it was created mostly in Africa. And, you know, the financial system that we use wasn't created by white people. So to say, you know, it was influenced and taken over by white people, but Jews are really the ones to say did this, and Jews only did it because of religion. When we really look at it, it was because of their religious, the things they were allowed to do as Hebrews versus people who were Christians and Muslims. You know, for example, just loaning money. You know, all of this is based off of just loaning. A lot of it's loaning money and knowing how to maintain money. All of that's tied to slavery. You know, all of that was tied to the religious aspect of how Jews were able to loan money to people. And that's a cardinal sin. That was a cardinal sin to Muslims and Jews back then, to Muslims and Christians. And all of these things play into how my approach to financial literacy and our Black people's approach to financial literacy. A lot of us don't come from certain places where we had to do. We're so harmonious with nature that we naturally just live off the land, and we stay within a level of harmony with the land. So it's equality there. But in a society like this, productivity, manipulation of resources, all these different things are things that we got to consistently do over time. And not everybody's privy to that. Not all white people are privy to having a financial literacy and being able to be a competitive people in today's society, in today's world. You know, you just have to be literate in the understanding of how business should be done and ran. You know, and we look at how many people were scammed in the conscious community, in the Black community. You know, mail fraud. You know, simplest thing is that, like mailing money to people who you have no address to, no way of getting to, nor do you have any way of verifying it. These are basic things that are taught in financial literacy. Knowing how to open up a bank account, understanding interest. Interest is, you know, Africans introduced interest to the world and taught interest, and it was Jews who used interest to develop business into what it is. But interest was already understood, you know, the understanding of percentages and ratios, and that was in the early what would you call it, the caravan areas and the areas where people traveled, the Silk Road and all these different things. Like, that was already part of the business, you know, where you traveled with your product to a place to sell your product, and trading at a certain amount, being precise with the amount that you traded. That's African. That's not white people. That's the whole reason why we have a decimal. White people didn't have a decimal. White people have the Roman numeral, you know, and we had the decimal because we needed to be able to, you know, conduct precise business. You know, it's just that the way in which we did business wasn't the type of business that these cave people did.
So would you say that in that case, when we're speaking financial literacy, we're looking beyond acclimating to the current environment, although that knowledge can be used for the current environment, and just looking toward, let me come about it from another way. Overall, you recognize that Black people have to have a level of integration and understanding to this society, because this is the society that we live in, right? Is that what you're saying? And so financial literacy is necessary for survival in this current environment. But it's
I would
that.
say the human environment, the human environment, the human society, not even a white black thing. Finances is a part of thing. Knowing how many berries you can carry over your back and trade with Irene when you get by the water. That's business.
Okay. And so another question that I want to ask you is, how do you feel about the level of integration or segregation we should have in the Black community with the rest of the world? So you're doing and pushing for a lot of things like opening our own schools. I'm sure that you're pro, Black business, moving our money around in our community, and purchasing from Black people worldwide if we can. And so where do you see, because I know that you're like, there are a lot of things you want to build so that we can have those things for ourselves. You talked about the things that you're building inside of your school, putting together clinics, things like that, so that we can have those things of our own. Do you see, if we all, let's say we all are working toward that place, there still being a level of integration that we're going to have with whites? And do you feel that that is necessary, beneficial, or unnecessary and not beneficial?
I mean, integration as a policy was white people's plan to control and manipulate Black people to be involved in the system. When they saw that Black people were already having a mentality, from the regular Blacks to the upper class Blacks to the pro Blacks, were saying, we're tired of this shit. So in the 60s, white people were taking surveys. They were already seeing that Black people want to get up out of here, and they need to figure this out. So integration is their tool to maintaining Black people. Now, Black people as a guerrilla, the whole guerrilla mentality is about using your enemy's tools. So for me, I was taught to be a guerrilla. So you just land in the enemy's land and you get your tools from the enemy. You learn from your enemy. You use your enemy's weaknesses against them. But the only way you can do that is if you learn from your enemy. You understand your enemy, and it's beyond like the spook who sat by the door. It's China. China is openly telling white people, I don't care what you say. Anything you put in the market, I'm going to take it, duplicate it, and steal it. Everything white people put out, China has taken, remade publicly. And it's because they got a lot of people, they don't care. And they tell you straight up and down, like, look, I don't care. If it enters over here, we're going to take it apart, figure out how you made it, and then make it for ourselves. And there's nothing you can do about it.
So you do think that numbers plays a lot in that? Because I think that's the one thing China has on its side, is that they have the numbers. They have the numbers and they have the control over their community. And they have, even though you have Chinese people spread throughout the world, all roads lead back to China, right? That's where they're pulling their products from. That's why that's where they're sourcing the materials for their stores. That's where they go back and they visit China on a regular basis, a lot of them. So then would you also be promoting Black people to be reproductive in nature? And where does reproducing our own kind and building our community cross-sect with responsible reproduction?
Okay. Yes, make more babies, Black people. Make more babies. Black men, babies are not something to be scared of. It's 2018. Not to say they're not expensive, but if you remove the cracker out your head, you don't have to buy Huggies. You know what I mean? Target and Walmart diapers is just as good. You know what I mean? Like stuff is really cheap now. Like you don't have to have the stupid, crazy big house. You don't have to compete with white people. Like it's really decent, times right now that we live in. In the 90s, it was really hard. The 80s, but 2000, now where we at is definitely the time to make more black babies and increase the black wealth through knowledge and understanding. And China, when you're going back to what you said with China, China has a lot of tactical things that empower it. One, their location, it costs a lot of money to go to war with China. Just like Russia. Napoleon and what you call, was it Napoleon? Who was marched into China, into Russia and just completely ruined themselves? The Nazi guy, I'm terrible at names, Hitler. And Russia, beyond the fact that it's a superpower, you have to go over there. China is all the way over there. America don't got the position to continuously monitor them and see what they're doing. And you can fit like 3 or 4 Americas in China. So it's a pretty big place. And so when we look at that, we have to understand that their position and their culture. So China was been taken over on some emperor stuff. So that means the entire China was organized underneath one emperor, and that means a lot. Their martial arts, their culture is in tune with discipline a lot, and it's in tune with the sciences. There is no religious play. They have a philosophy over there, and it's totally different. And these things allow, to me, in my opinion, their country to flourish, especially in today's age. And then they're willing to do things to themselves and to other people that, it's just what it is. I mean, they told all their women you can't make no babies, and if you make a baby, they're gonna deal with the baby, and they deal with the babies. These are decisions that not everybody's willing to make, and they're willing to do whatever they got to do to make themselves be at what level they are now. And we just have to make these same decisions and say this is for us, and understand it's going to take time and focus on that time and the work that's going to be done during that time to make us be able to reach that point. So yes, we need to be reproducing the minds, in as many people as possible, not just making babies, but we need to be reproducing minds who are aligned with the understanding that we need to empower our people. We need to align with the people all over the world. We need to be scientific literate. We need to be financially literate. We have to be, be able to heighten the sense of relationships, heighten sense of communication. An over heightened ability to communicate and regurgitate what what were communicated to you, and so we have to focus on these things, because in today's age, you'll just end up a slave.
So you would say that we want to reproduce we want to reproduce and literally make more Black people, but because there's a mental aspect to being Black, because you can have the phenotype of a Black person, but be white in your mindset, that we're also wanting to create more Black people by reaching into the minds of people that are phenotypically Black and bringing them to a Black mindset.
Yep.
What do you think about doing that outside of the confines of marriage?
I don't believe in marriage. I believe in relationships. I believe in love. I believe in contractual obligations. I believe in, being open and responsible. And I believe in, having plans with somebody that you consider to be a significant other. I don't put marriage, I don't even, for me, marriage doesn't, on paper, it means something, but that's all I think about is the paper part. Outside of that, the relationships is what matters. And so, I think majority of us are polygamous. And our community is so open and vast right now that our perception of polygamy is not what we would, what people want it to be, but, we have to be open. There's a lot of sisters who have children with men that's not there. There's a lot of men who are good brothers with children with women that are not there. There's a lot of people who are willing to put in stuff, and we got to bond this together. We have to work together. And the families, marriage, when we, in the sense of what white people taught us, walking down the aisle, getting this big wedding. I don't promote that. I promote having a positive, powerful relationship with your queen. You know, if you're gonna spend $30,000 on a wedding, and that's the first thing that y'all did, y'all should be investing $30,000 into yourselves, $15,000 both into both of you. Put $5,000 into another investment. To me, that's more realistic. You know, having your family put all of that type of money into your union. Nah, y'all should be putting it into things that's gonna, you know, support the union in its long run. You know, and that's finances, that's entrepreneurship, that's, you know, things like that.
So you definitely think that the the family structure can look any kind of way depending on the participants, but the main goal is to have something that's healthy and functional, especially with regard to like the children that are created, and that so that could be a man and, you know, multiple wives. That could be a man and, I'm saying wife, you know, for lack of a better term. That could be a man and one woman. Like, as long as the understanding is there and the participants are engaging in something that's healthy for the individuals involved.
Yep.
Okay, so let's talk about children. When we're cultivating the minds of our children, what is your goal specifically? Because you have an institute for youth. Can you talk a little bit about that and what your goal is when you're dealing with the minds of these little ones?
Black power. You know, like I said earlier, you know, embracing that synergy, focusing on, when I, you know, every time I used to say black power, and I would used to use different definitions and stuff, but now this, I don't know what made me think about this definition now, but it's synergy. You know, when you have a group of people all working together, it's very powerful. You know, I used to do, I used to listen to, you know, Napoleon Hill.
Mm-hmm.
You familiar with Napoleon Hill?
I'm not familiar with Napoleon Hill. Why don't you enlighten me?
I think he wrote Thinking, did he write Think and Grow Rich? And he also wrote he wrote a bunch of books. He was like Carnegie's financial person and advisor, and he wrote Think and Grow Rich. So on YouTube, I used to just listen to his series like over and over. I'm not even gonna lie. And one of his concepts is the mastermind principle. And the mastermind principle is when you have two people working together in an accord towards one goal. And for me, that's synergy. When you look at the definition of synergy, it's the motivation and morale that's built between people who are working together towards a goal. So when I think about the children, my vision ultimately is that these children are going to work together and empower our community, and the synergy that they're going to have is what's going to be needed to invigorate and guarantee a future that's going to be, you know, that's going to flourish. You know, it's one thing to have, you know, when you go to the typical school, the children aren't aligned with anything. You know, the children in my program, they're aligned with the idea that they're here to make our world better. They're here to make Black people's lives better. They're here to take us to the next level, and they need to hear that consistently. When they're taught that, the level of responsibility that's involved in them, that's induced into them, you know, when they understand that they're being taught to be disciplined because they're an example of what our future wants and what our future needs, you can see them understand that, and they're given a it's like the military, you know what I mean? You have to have that edge. You have to believe, and you have to be a part of something that's bigger than you. And Black power is bigger than us. And when you're down and your chips are down and your team is low, and then everybody beats their chest and yells, and everybody just says, we're gonna do this, and they all focus at that one moment and say, we can't lose, we have to do this. That synergy is what makes them win games. And that's what I see when I'm looking at the screen of my children right now, and that for me is what I see with them, and it's the future of that, where, you know, this January I'm hoping to be able to reach like 50 to 100 kids in our program, And that's 100 children who are going to be told by me around this country that they're beautiful every time I'm in class, that they're the future, that our future depends on them, that they are going to be the engineers of tomorrow. So every student in my program is taught that they're going to be an engineer. You have to engineer something for the world. And the purpose of an engineer is to figure things out and to make the world a better place. And everything we have is through design. And you're the person that's going to be designing these things in the future. And I drill that into their heads so that way they know that they have that responsibility. They understand that they're there to help each other. They're there to be our future. And we're here to support them so that way we can have a future that is beyond what we can ever dream of. Like, I can't say what it's going to look like when I have kids from North Carolina, Atlanta, California, in New York, all in a live feed together, talking about engineering and Black power at 8 years old. I don't, you know what I mean? Like the possibilities from that in 10 years is tremendous. I can't even quantify it. I can quantify it with my own plans, but you really can't quantify the possibilities. And yeah.
Okay, so your definition of Black power then, and I actually think this is very literal interpretation, right? Is a cooperation between Black people, and within that cooperation, it actually creates a powerful community. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Well, like, where Kwame Ture really brought us the term Black power. And when he said Black power, he said you have to help the person next to you be good, be able to take care of themselves. And now when we have those two people thinking about empowering our community, they take on the mastermind mindset. And now they have a synergy together. That synergy is what I consider to be the Black power. That's what, in my head, that energy is what, when I be on these live streams and I hear everybody talking about Black power, and I'm like, yo, I got to do more. And I get goosebumps. And then I was half asleep and now I'm up working on the website. I'm like, yo, let's do this. Let's do this. Let's do this. That's power, and that power is what allows you to do work, and so that synergy is what's going to empower us to do work, because we're going to see that energy and we're going to be motivated by it and say, let's do something. And that's where everybody be like, yo, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? And so for me, my definition that literally I just came with today is like, it's all about the synergy of people working together, Black people working together to empower their community. And when other people see that and see that with a level of swag, they're going to want to be involved. And that's what we saw in the 60s, when people were really taking care of their communities. And then it went to the 70s and white people saw this and said, hold on, these Black people are building up a synergy that's crazy. If we don't get in here and stop this, we're going to lose them. So they said, yo, you know what? Get these niggas jobs. Let's go kill all the political leaders. We're going to put crack in their neighborhoods. We're going to create project systems. We're going to create this welfare system. And that should hold these niggas back for about 50 years. And they said that in the New Deal. When they wrote the New Deal, the Negro Dilemma, and integration, they said it should last for a good 50, 60 years. And now we're about 40 to 50 years later, and it's over. We're having these conversations on YouTube. White people can't stop it. You see what I mean? Like, we're healing ourselves on our own. Nobody told Black people to do a bunch of memes saying that Black women are beautiful. Nobody told us to create a Tommy Sotomayor, and nobody told us to go to war with Tommy Sotomayor. But we're doing it, and we're healing ourselves. And just give us time. We're going to be right back past the 60s. My pops always tells me, like, yo, Q, you remind me of the 60s. And I said, I caught back up. That means tomorrow I'm going to remind you of the 70s. And then after the 70s, you don't know what I'm going to look like, because for you, the 70s was it. And after the 70s, crack came in, and then Black people got, we got beat up. We got drunk punched. We were trying to get up, and we were just all over the place. Now we back up.
That's so interesting that you described it that way, like a setback on a path that we were traveling, but that we're catching back up to that now. What do you see, and this is coming from some of what people are saying in the chat, what do you see the role of the Black family in this, and where the Black family is currently at? And how do you see the two genders playing into this vision of us unifying as Black people toward the united cause of empowering ourselves and growing and strengthening our community.
The center of any people is the family. You know, this shit all went down the wire and everybody was for everybody. I'm going to go for my family. And then as I got my gun and I got my family in a good space, I'm going to find some other family who's aligned with me. And then our two families are going to click together. And then it might be 5 families. And now we're a clan. And this is what they teach in social studies, you know, clans first. And after it went to the clans and tribes, then it goes into some feudal systems or kingships or chiefdoms. This is very, you know, typical. This is how humans progress all over the planet. And it's consistent all over the planet. So for me, it's in that same chord where, you know, the Black family is the beginning of our ability to have a clan, a tribe, a chiefdom, a nation, a people, and a country. So the Black family is the most, and probably the only thing I consider besides children, if I use the word to be sanctified or to be something that's special, I put the Black family as something that's special because we don't have to be a family. You know, you could just make babies and do what sharks do and dumb shit like that. But to be empowered and to be great, the Black family, the family unit has to be considered one of the most utmost things to be maintained. And so the father, the mother, both are submissive to the goals that they have to empower their family. The children see them being submissive to each other and dedicating their times to each other to make sure that the family is empowered. And that teaches the children how to dedicate themselves and sacrifice towards a bigger goal. And when they see the families all come together and sacrifice towards a common goal, that teaches camaraderie amongst the family, and it teaches the children that we do have some form of union. And so for us on Saturdays, when we do the self-defense, that's one little class that the families can bind together. They see all of the men. Like literally this last weekend, the brother who teaches a class, he goes and picks, shout out to brother Sean and Vaughn. Vaughn goes and picks up, does 2 trips almost. He jumps here, drops the stuff off, grabs the first set of kids, drops the stuff off, and then go picks up the other kids. And sometimes he'll make 3 trips to pick up kids. And one of the kids, the group of kids he picks up is a boy and a girl, and they both were orphans for whatever reason. And their grandmother, I don't know how the Hispanic girl and a Black boy both ended up with his grandmother, but the grandmother's taking care of these 2 kids. And I'm talking about, yeah, they need Q butter. They leave them with me for a week. That shit out the window. I don't play that with kids. I'm extremely strict. And yeah, I don't play that with kids. I don't play that shit. So the little boy was going crazy. So I had to, give him the Q butter treatment, and I was dealing with him. But his sister was stealing, and she stole a trophy. And so at the end of the night, when we were looking for the trophy, they caught her because she was stealing a camera, or not a camera, a flashlight. And so in her coat, she had a flashlight, a trophy, a toy. I'm like, damn, this little girl. And it was so funny. I'm like, at least it wasn't the Black kids. I'm like, at least none of our Black kids do it. None of the kids that come to the program would ever steal from me. And when I spoke to her, I said, look, you're an orphan. You don't know your parents. You're old enough to understand. I talk very straight to kids and direct. And I'm like, you're an orphan. You have nowhere to go today. And that I'm kicking you out. And I said, you have to go. You can't be in my program no more. This isn't for thieves. You stole from the family. How dare you? Do you even have a family? I'm drilling this little 9-year-old girl. Like, do you even have a family? Your family left you. You don't have no men in your life. And you have 3 Black men standing here. And I went in. This was almost 30 minutes of just lecturing her. I had the whole class sit down, all of the boys that was left, and I had them all vote and say, should she come back to the class? And half of them said no. And I said, look, you need to apologize to every single one of them. And I need you to tell them why you're wrong and how you're hurting your family. We don't have to do this for you. Vaughn went and picked you up, and she was just, I could see in her face that she's never been, scolded like that and drilled like that for something she did and reprimanded. And I really went in. And if she's going to come back this weekend, I'm going to be on top of it. Like, no, little girl, I might have you write an essay. You don't even get to do the self-defense class. You're just going to sit over here and write, disciplinary, terms and stuff like that for a whole 2 hours or something. So, But yeah,
No, I was just going to ask you because someone mentioned in the comments, and I'm really on the fence about this myself. One of my moderators said to your conversation about, you know, having children, having a strong family, da da da, that a dysfunctional man and a dysfunctional woman make a dysfunctional child. A dysfunctional block equals a dysfunctional neighborhood and a dysfunctional town and so forth and so on, similar to kind of the inversion of what you were just saying. Do you feel that, and I know AM1 feels this way, that essentially Black people should not reproduce until they're functioning, that we should just put a stop on everything until we're functioning? Do you think that makes sense, that that's realistic? Do you think that we can do this on the move? Do you know what I mean?
I can't make all the babies. So, you know what I mean? To me, our enemy doesn't do that. None of our enemies' associates do that. Like they maintain the amount of babies, but if you stop making babies, you knock out productivity. You know, what we should do is create things that empower our parents, to educate the parents, to create the mindsets that we want. You know what I mean? But to telling people not to make babies, that's impossible. You know, what we do need is tools and more avenues to exchange ideas with parents who may not have a vehicle to vent their ideas on, or a platform to even receive ideas on how to become a functioning person. And we have these, we're on YouTube, we have these things. And I employ any person in the last week of 2018, whatever you think is an issue, that's your goal. And it's the same thing in business. When you find a niche, that's an issue. And once you find your niche, that's your business. You move to a no neighborhood, look, nobody fixes radiators. Make a radiator fixing business. Nobody does plumbing. You know, so don't ask me what type of business I would say. I would say go to a neighborhood, canvass the neighborhood, and see what the businesses are lacking in that neighborhood, what's lacking in the neighborhood, and fill that niche. And so for us, the niche is that we make babies. So it's not about saying stopping to make babies. We need to figure out how to help the parents who make babies, how to help them where, for me, when I go down south, I see nothing but space. To me, the answer is the South for a lot of the people that's in the cities. We're like, look, sisters, you don't have the ability to take care of your kids and you may need help, or the brothers need help. We have all of this space down south. You can send your child here. We have parents who are certified. We have their fingerprints, and we have cameras all over the facility. This is easy to do. This isn't really difficult to do. And we can do these things and help out our parents versus creating, the playing field where it's just abortions and people who are considered dysfunctional. And that's one of my actual goals. Shout out to Soli Dooley. He's the one that put that in my head. He's like, yo, we can buy a building and create a whole place that can fit 40 kids in it, 30, 40 kids in 3-4 buildings, and it don't even cost that much. Some of these places are $8,000, $9,000, Statesville, North Carolina, right out in Jonesboro, or, right in Nashville, right outside of, what's that? I forgot the Black neighborhood in Jacksonville, where the historic, what's it, Richardson? Whatever, St. Louis is dumb cheap. Like I'm building with Dr. G, and a bunch of people hit me with St. Louis. St. Louis, like some of these places are the places where we need to galvanize and say, look, we can afford this. I know you, Irene, Nyla, Cynthia, Ren, and myself can afford a house in St. Louis. It's $500 a month. That's $50 from all of us, and we have a whole house with 2,000 square feet that we can actually have people to be able to go to. This is a refuge for you. You can go here. You can't handle your boys? Look, we have a whole place for you. You can Skype them, you can talk to them, you can Google Hangouts with them, and we have cameras for you to monitor your children. And so these are things that we can do, and if we want more functioning parents and more functioning people in society, we need to do more to make these people functional.
That's so interesting. It's amazing because there are quite a few people in the chat, and I don't know what's behind this mindset. There are quite a few people in the chat who are just against bringing more Black children into the world. I don't know, just talking to the chat really quick, I don't know if you guys realize that our people are not at replacement rate. Like, we aren't even having enough children to replace the Black people that are dying. So what sense does it make to just completely stop reproducing and work on the few children we have now that aren't even enough to replace the Black people that are dying? I'm trying to understand that our population's already declining. So how are we helping ourselves by not reproducing? I feel like we have to have a pretty low opinion of Black people to think that we need to stop reproducing because we're just so broken as a group that all we can do is try to salvage the few kids that we're having now. What is your?
I think that's just a fear.
Go ahead.
I think that's just fear. And you ever seen the movie Idiocracy?
No. But you
Yeah,
know
you should
what?
see
I know
it.
you mentioned it and that you said that we should watch it.
Yeah,
So I have
this
to
is
watch it.
this is exactly what you're talking about, because the dumb people and the dysfunctional people are not going to stop making babies. So if you don't want to make no babies, you're just going to end up in a world where there's going to be a lot more people who you don't like with babies than people who you do like. And that's where it's heading. Like, I am not scared of kids. And if you are a functioning person, you should make children, because it's more likely that your children will survive and be progressive in a world of dysfunctioning people. That's just what I see it. If you teach them how to be functioning, it's an easy business niche. Most Black kids don't know engineering. Most Black kids, unfortunately, aren't taught algebraic thought or high level mathematics, or coding, or refined tooling. Teach your child that, and to be pro-Black, boom, they have a future. It's really, if you're functional, you be functional. Like, for me, I was taught. My pops was like, look, my children are my extent of my Black power involvement. So
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
no, I was gonna say that so if that's where you are, just let that be where you are. That's take care of your kids.
And I don't know if you guys were listening to the plan that he laid out, but he was saying that we can also address a lot of these issues communally, where we can have safe havens for children and individuals who need some place to go. That if we worked on this as a communal effort, that we could address those individuals, those children. This is the same thing with us creating schools, finding ways to fund them and allow these children to go to them. A lot of parents are very hands off with their kids, and they just don't care as long as the kids are out of their hair. And on the outside looking in, we could say, oh my gosh, these are just the kind of people that shouldn't have kids. Another way to look at it is the way that predators look at it, right? Obviously, we're not predators, but a predator looks at that as a situation to have access to a child, right? And to groom a child. Well, that can work for the good too. If a person isn't giving their child the nourishment as the child needs, then that's an opportunity for somebody with a sound mind to come in and be a mentor, guide the child, educate the child, and things like that. The problem is that sane-minded people aren't making that choice. It's the predators who see that opportunity and act on it. And those of us who have a right mind about us, we're not seeing that as an opportunity. We're seeing it as a liability. And I think it actually makes these kids more vulnerable, not less vulnerable, and they're slipping between the cracks. So we may need to rethink our ideology and how we are approaching the way that we're viewing these situations.
I definitely agree.
I'm sorry?
No, I agree to that.
So I also want to just ask you, what and I've asked you this like before, but not for this crowd. What is your 10-year plan is my first question. And then my second question is, what can be done by us as a community to support that?
Survive. That's my 10-year plan, is to be alive, to survive, and do as many things as possible to empower my people. I can itemize them. However, what I've come to terms with is that it's a guerrilla war, and you don't know what's going to fall off the truck, and you don't know if you might get, dragged into a truck. And the people who I look up to, many of them have been taken out before they had the ability to complete their own goals. We are fighting an enemy that's extremely diabolical, sick, and a killer. And when you realize that you're an enemy to be taken serious, they deal with you that way. And so I plan on being a thorn and a greater thorn in the ass of my enemy. And so I can't sit here, you know, my pops was in Vietnam, and you can't ask somebody who had a lifespan of 2 minutes to say, yo, what you doing tomorrow morning? You know what I mean? Like so I don't think like that, you know what I mean? Like what I have right now, what I'm working on and what I'm setting forth, you know, and I'm trying to create plans that, you know, that can exist without me and things that could be going, you know, like I said, if I'm not here and shit like that. And so one being, of course, educational institutions, clinics, and facilities for us to congregate and develop our Black minds in. These things out of the country and other parts of the country are extremely doable. Like I said, Dr. G, one sister, what I'm doing in Atlanta and what I'm doing in Detroit and things I plan on doing in Detroit, we can immediately do. So how I look at it is a very guerrilla and a very business-minded sense. Like I said, the same way I was before, you know, my studio, I'm an audio engineer. But going forward, if I want to do a new business, I would think about where I want to do business at and then look at what's needed in that area. You know, and that's how I look at business and investing in business. And that's a slightly different thing than saying I want to invest in a business. You know, this is how franchises, you know, people look at a certain area and say like, all right, I want to open up a business. I'm going to purchase a franchise. And I know that there's no Subways or there's no Burger Kings or there's no, you know, yogurt, whatever businesses over here. So I'm going to purchase one of these franchises and bring it there. So for me, I look at Black power like that. Like if I end up in St. Louis and there's a shortage of clinics, let's open up a clinic. If I'm in Texas and we have the ability to open up a gun range, let's open up a gun range. If we're in Florida and we can open up our own lab, let's open up a lab. If I'm in Nigeria and they let me make guns, I'm making guns. Like personal goal, I want to make a hydro generator. I want to put a hydro generator on a water and create a dam and have this dam named after myself. You really want my ego? I want to make a dam and be able to provide power to an entire neighborhood, entire city, because we came up with our own hydrogen generator and we built it ourselves, and we controlled the path of the water and we directed it so that we can get the most force out of the water, and we're providing electricity to all these people, you know, anything to empower our people. And I'm with the shits. So after this interview, somebody might call me after this interview and be like, look, I got a whole building in Chicago and I got $500,000 to work with. I'm going to drop what I'm doing because that supersedes it. I'm a businessman. So I'm able to prioritize and say like, look, this can go here, that can go here, drop this new mission. You know, I'm not married to anything. Yes, this is the institute I'm doing now, but that's because of space I got. I may not have the space tomorrow. Crackers may come in here and do something and be like, that's not going to stop my ability to be, you know, empowered. No, I may just jump over to Jersey and get a location. Or I may say, you know what, can't do it physically. Let's open up a whole bunch of websites. Whatever is going to take to empower our people. And so my lifelong plan is to be a tool to empower our people and a thorn in the ass of my enemy.
So it's really interesting because I know that the things that you do, you are open to sharing your methodologies and how you build how you built your institute, the credit repair, just whatever knowledge you have. I know that you are open to sharing that with other people, right? What do you think about individuals who are they're of the mindset that like their ideas, their movements, what they're doing, it's their property. They don't really want to share that because, you know, whatever the case is. Do you think that it's important that we be willing to open up how we open our businesses, where we got our education, the avenues we took to other Black people? And if so, why?
Society is a compounded effort, and we are here because of people who made decisions hundreds of thousands of years ago. And we are the example of information that's compiled from hundreds of thousands of years. And so we should think in our best interest to look at the information that was compiled prior to us and share it as much as possible and create dialogue so that way we can comprehend the information that's being shared. Two, our enemy has opened up the doors, like open source. Like open source doesn't have nothing to do with Black people. White people have made their entire playing field open source. I implore you to look up the Internet of Things, you know, Gateway, Intel, Gateway, iMac, you know, all these web programs, cars with these computers, they're all working together. You know, when I talk about the coding language in Arduino, Arduino is a free coding language. Most people, are you familiar with G code?
No, I don't code, so no.
So one of Google's top websites is called G code. And it's Google's free platform to provide anybody in the world with access to code, you know, and the tools to be able to program your devices. And this is the world we're in when we consider that as like the playing field for development, where if you're going to tell people, I'm not going to teach you algebra because I only know it, I'm only going to here, you're killing an entire society's ability to grow. And so for me, I consider what I have open source information. And I've been, especially in New York, around so many people who charge for information that were just shit bags. Like I've been in business for a long time. Not a long, I've been in business 12 years almost. And I've been struggling with my business and like any other business owner. And that's what part of the getting over the grain is. And people will watch you struggle, especially in the music industry. People will watch you struggle and suffer and just, my bad, cool. Well, you're not open right now? All right, next person. And that's the world. And that's how, the conscious community is not like that. And we're not supposed to be like that. And we have to share. And that's when I got into, before I even got into YouTube, when I got into the financial literacy, it was because people were, hurting the community by packaging financial literacy inside of capitalistic endeavors. Like, I'm going to help you with your finances long as you sign up for this book club, or you sign up for this thing here, or you buy this here, or you my class. And it's like, the government is giving this shit away for free. Why would I pay you? And why would you think that I should pay you? And then you're going to use your black card. So when I got on the scene, I was already having issues with a lot of people whom I was working with because I saw them as, profiteers. And I saw the way in which they were treating financial literacy as harsh. And I'm like, no, financial literacy now is almost considered in the subject of health. So when you talk about health now in school, economics is economics, but financial literacy is now being taught in health, because they understand that in order for you to have a healthy mind in today's society, you need to understand your finances, because more than likely you may go look how many people committed suicide during the market, when the market crashed. And these are white people saying we want to teach our children financial literacy. And our black community, not following white people, but we just need to know that these are things that go towards our livelihood. And the faster we teach children in our community, the things that go towards empowering our livelihood, and we make the things that empower our livelihoods as a standard and a prerequisite for empowerment, then we'll go further. And when we see other communities, that's what they do. When you talk about Canada, health insurance is free, the taxes are low. These things are there because they want to benefit their people. When you go to certain cities and you see like, oh, this city doesn't have any welfare, or they doesn't have any city benefits, the people's morale is low. You go to other cities where they have a certain level of city benefits and different types of help, the morale is higher in that city. Like, you can't hate on New York. Like, people want to talk about New York. New York people love New York. New York takes care of New Yorkers. Other cities, they leave you out to dry, and some cities try, and we just have to employ that same thing. Another example would be predatory loans. Buy here, pay here. Buy here, pay here is illegal in New York. In other states, it's not illegal. And when us black people look at other districts and see what works for other districts, we need to immediately apply it to other parts where we are. And when you see in New York being the financial capital of most of the world, see, buy here, pay here is illegal, and we do not promote it and we banned it, then I think people in Detroit who are the leaders should say, why would New York ban buy here, pay here loans? Because they're predatory. And where do they target? Black people. And so when you go to certain areas and you see, hold on, you have a buy here, pay here next to a check cashing spot, next to a liquor store, then you understand like this is by design, and the people who are supposed to be politically inclined are not doing things politically to empower our community to be able to protect itself from predators. And so for me, that ultimately is the reason why I promote certain forms of education, because it's the only way the community can protect itself. And in the field of financial literacy, the government is even in that same congruent of thought, where now financial laws that go towards credit repair, contractual obligations, business have to be written in layman terms. That's the federal law now. You have to write it in layman terms. You can't write these words that a college person has to read. Financial literacy, credit repair laws have to be written in the most common language, and that's, you know, 8th grade and below language. And that's because they know if you don't protect the communities through empowering them with the ability to understand the endeavors they're taking on, then you're creating a future of people who are going to be eventually asking you for help because they did things that they didn't understand and it hurt them. And so for me, that's where I see myself. We're like, no, we need to provide this information. Like, yes, I can make a school, but you may be in a better position than me, and you may not just know what I know. And if I give you the information, you might be the next thing to pop. And that's the way we got to look at it. We have to pass the baton, because it's about empowering our community and about our people worldwide. It's not about being the person at the top. It's about providing us. And that's what I see white power is about. White power, when they went open source, that's because white people want white people to be empowered worldwide. When you go onto YouTube and you type in any subject in mathematics and you can see a white person teaching for free, it's because they want their white community to be empowered with it. And they want them to be mathematically inclined. And so I'm sitting here right now. I can turn the screen right here and show you where I'm on the, like, for me, I'm like, that's going to be one of my greatest gifts to the community, my videos. You know, we're like, no, I filmed my entire curriculum. I made my curriculum open source and editable. So that way we can build on it and we don't have to go to these crackers for it. And it's free, you know, and I'm going to be uploading it soon, and it's in order, and I treat it as if I was paid. And when you look at some of these, our enemies, when you look at what Japanese people do for Japanese people, when you look at what Chinese people do to empower Chinese people, we have to take these things and say, no, we need to do these things to them, and we're doing it. And we have to understand that the white man in this system has kept us from trying to do it, because they understand when we do these things, their natural enemy and the person that they've oppressed for so long is going to stand up and be very pissed off.
That's such an interesting way to look at it too. And that's contrary to what most Black people want to do. You know, if you want them to consult on something, then they're going to want to check. If you want to get an idea of how they built what they built, then they're going to want to check. But it kind of works against the actual building of our community. And you're right, open source is huge now. I don't code, but the little, 2-3 things that I've ever tried, what I did is I went and I looked at that information, and the same thing, they have, institutes that provide teaching materials and things that are open source, and that's so true. Do you think that, what do you think? So as we're engaging other Black people, I know you're pretty kind of hard-lined with how you deal with other Black people because you feel time is so precious. But as we engage other Black people, how do we pull them into the fold? Or should we be trying to do that? Because, everybody, it's not that they won't come over. A lot of people haven't reached a mental space where they're ready to come over to doing things and working as a collective. Do you think it's a waste of time to try to draw those people in? Or do you have tools for reaching those people? Because you were talking about conforming minds. Not just of children, right? So that would include adults as well. So can you give an example of what that might look like, or if you even think it's something that should be bothered with or is possible?
Are you going to restate that one more time?
Yeah. So you were talking about conforming minds, right? That there's a Black mindset as well. When we talk about conforming minds, when we're engaging people who aren't already in a place where their mind is inclined toward Black empowerment, is it a waste of time to try to bring them over? And if it's not a waste of time, what are some approaches that we can use?
Wow. It's crazy. I was having this conversation with a sister earlier, and she's more hard-lined than me. And she's had issues with a couple of people on YouTube, And I was on the phone with her for almost 2 hours. The Radical Sister, you familiar with the Radical Sister?
Yes.
Yeah, that's my sister right there. That's like family. Beautiful. I love that. That's a beautiful sister. And we were talking about that. Not everybody's from the cloth. Not everybody is like, I've been, and not just me, that like in New York and in certain cities, like they've been around Black, deep ideological Black thought for their whole life. And not everybody's privy to that type of thought process. And some people, like you said, like you became more aware and, not to, whatever time, not everybody's been around it their whole time. And we have to give time for us to come to that. Our enemy did such a tremendous job, and I don't even know if tremendous is the right word, such a precise job at attacking our mentality and attacking our ability to become empowered and become, courageous and have self-love, that it's hard for me to be unforgiving. And today, it's so funny because I thought about you. I was like, yo, when I was on the phone, I was like, damn, yo, you really bringing me back to my Christian shit? Like, I got to really turn the cheek on everybody. But, and so I was on the phone with her while you and the dude was going back and forth in the chat room. And it was really, it's weird because I'm really at a spot today. I might wake up tomorrow and get less sleep and be like, nah, fuck that, cut off everybody's head. But I really am in I don't want to say a Christian space right now, I'm African forgiving space, but I do know that we have to heal. And some of us really were just taught to be niggas. And we have no but there's a line, you know what I mean? And I don't, I don't know, you know what I mean? That's today. This is me talking today, you know what I mean? Only because I was talking to the Radical Goddess and I'm asking her to talk to other people. And then I heard what she said and she's like, yo, Q, some of these people crossed lines against me that they have to take away because they violated me in a way where now it's like, it's past the points. And that happens a lot online. And you were in the room you were on the lead feeds twice when Obsidian after, and you were also, and I noticed your change in vibes yesterday, and I wouldn't attribute it to our conversation, but you had a total different tone yesterday with some people. And I was like, damn. And I was listening to it. And then the brother who you were talking to in the back chat, he clearly needs to be healed, clearly has some healing needs. And he insulted me on Open Up. I don't even know who that dude is. I've never spoken to him before on a platform. And he opened up, was like, I don't respect you, Q. And it was funny because I really was just trying to get my point across, and I don't like when we start. That shit is just so childish. I know it makes people watch, and I would suggest to anybody's platform, like I was gonna suggest to Nyla, maybe time it and let people know, like, all right, yo, we about to go Royal Rumble for 15 minutes and just go off, and then I know I can just fall back. You know what I mean? But I be passionate because of it. I really like I like to connect with people and communicate. But I was just really saying, like, yo, bro, you took up the whole conversation. I don't know if you were listening to yourself take over an entire room of people with 600 people watching. And I don't think it's fair or responsible to just enter a room and take over because of what you're talking about. And then you're not even letting other people talk. And I'm not going to, it's corny to get in a shouting match. And you're looking at your little green, you can see who has the loudest microphone, so it's like, that's really, it's just whack. And we need to, communicate. And so you were talking to him and he was going crazy in the back chat. And my first message was, yo, fuck you. How dare you come at me like that? And you a sucker. I was writing something like that. Then I thought about it. I'm like, nah, Q. Because the way he was writing his points, I'm like, yeah, he really wants to get his point across. That's crazy to me. And I'm like, you know what? So you saw what I wrote. I'm like, yo, bro, if you took a different approach, you would get your point across. That was me being forgiving. Because everything inside of me wanted me to say, did you just publicly say you don't respect me because my name is Q Butter? Then he turned around and said, you think you better than us because, or some shit like that, because these girls on this platform fuck with you? That was after he said, I'm going to come up here and talk for men because nobody's talking for men. I'm like, yo, bro, there's two of us on the platform. And so in real life, I don't take light to insults. I'm very defensive and I don't let's fight. You know what I'm saying? If you can talk like that and you're a grown man in front of another grown man, you must want to fight. You know what I mean? You must be that bold to fight. So let's crack. Fuck all the other shit. And so today, after talking to Rattle Goddess, I'm like, you know what? I have to be more of a forgiving person up front because I know my people are damaged and I know that they have to heal. And it's so funny because you came up in my head because I'm like, that's what you were saying, that you wanted to hear people and why you was on Tommy. And it's funny because that's the name I brought it to the sister. I'm like, damn, I can't apply this to Tommy, but it's clearly that he needs help. You know, and if I just put my, I don't want to say Christian hat on, but if I put on my, you know, turn the cheek hat that I used to be for a couple years, I would just see through all of the hate and I would just be like, no, I see your pain. And that's how I used to look at people, for the amount of pain that they present and the pain that they hold and they hide. And you can, as soon as, and when I, yesterday's platform, I had that on and I was like, wow, I just see the pain. When I went in the, when all those people in the chat room, there was so much pain that you were talking about what you went through, and it was, I don't even know how to word that shit. You diminished what you went through because the girl was talking about how much pain she went through. And that was just crazy to me. Like, it was just crazy to me. Like, there was this, and I'm like, yo, we need to heal. And so today that brought me to it, because that was the only response I could have to the Radical Goddess, is to be that example. And I'm like, you know what? We got to heal us, because not all of us come from the cloth and we're very defensive and we jump out the window first. The typical first thing one of us is going to do is insult us. I know that. And so in the studio, I know that with kids, and I deal with that up front because I'm used to that apprehensiveness to being corrected or being educated or being taught something that you don't know. And for me, that's where it is, you know. My bad, I just looked at the chat. Somebody said, how are you educated but unable to debate and get your point across? That's not my point. My point is that if I'm going to have a discussion with someone and they're just hurtling insults, you must want to fight. And I think as a man,
where do you see that?
Ivory Phillips said, how are you an educator but unable to debate and get your point across?
Without violence? But that's what he just was saying, that he wasn't.
I don't do those. I don't even debate. Like, if you ask me to do a debate, I don't debate. Like, we should be building. We should be having conversations. But if we enter the conversation and you're upfront disrespectful to the cipher, where I was raised, that is a call to be checked. But we don't like to be checked. So when you check somebody, and that's what happened yesterday. So this is what I checked him. I said, yo, homeboy, let somebody else talk. And when I said that, he jumped out and said, yo, son, you getting all sensitive. Just say what the fuck you want to say. So then what happened with me was, I responded and said, shut the fuck up, homeboy, you bitch ass nigga. And then instead of saying, like, you know what, Q, I know that that's what's going to happen. Don't even respond, because that's the immature thing to do. You know what I mean? And that way, I would have been able to rectify the situation faster. You know, and then you saw in the chat room, he immediately apologized, like, yo, Q, yo, I wasn't even that serious. And I'm like, I don't build like that. Like, you shouldn't insult somebody in a conversation when you're really building. Like, and I don't think he had the ability to even understand what was going on, because he was so insensitive to this conversation because of his own.
You know who's in the chat right now? Tommy Sotomayor is in the chat right now. Hi, Tommy. I want to say this. That's the whole problem, is even the use of the word debate. I'm with Q Butter as in to say that I really feel that debate shouldn't be the spirit that we're having in a conversation. When that brother came onto the panel, he came on to debate, but that panel was to build. When you come to a debate, you have a set stance, and your goal is to argue your position. Do you know what I'm saying? That's your goal, is to argue your position. And that was the wrong vibe to come, because we can exchange ideas and move each other or inform each other, but to debate is something totally, totally different. You're not cool with who? He's not talking about you, Tommy. He's talking about a dude that we were on a panel with yesterday. first and foremost. So he's not discussing you. He's discussing a panel he and I were on. He and I did yesterday, and another gentleman who was hurting, and he came on and he was a disruption to the panel. That's what he's talking about. It's not about you. Just so you know. Go ahead. What were you about to say, Q Better?
Yeah, you know, he said you're right. Give enough people enough time. You're right, Tommy. It will show people who they are. And I can go in and show people who I am, and people attest for who I am. And when people talk about violence, that's the world we live in. You know what I mean? And if you're not prepared to deal with it head on, and if you're not prepared to understand what you're doing will create or incite violence, then you know this ain't the playing field for you. And where I'm at in Brownsville, Brooklyn, when I go to Bankhead, Atlanta, when I go to East, when I'm on 3rd Mile in Detroit, when I'm in Compton, I'm focused on us. And anybody who's not focused on developing us, I don't have the time to converse with them with anything about. You know, especially when you, as an adult, and this is where I'm torn with healing people, because someone like, you know, a Tommy or some of these people who have spewed so much hate, you know, and who clearly are reaching for help, you know, how do we mend with them? And I, for me, I can't let my children see that. Like, my children would never see me disrespect women. You know, I may have had a situation, arguments with my queen, but to blatantly disrespect women without regard, or people who might have passed or died without regard, is a level of low respect. And that's not something that I promote to the children. And when people cross certain lines, the children in the community and our sisters need to know that we don't co-sign that.
Can I say something? Because Tommy said he thinks I brought you up to talk about him. So let me just be very clear.
Let's move the conversation. Next.
I did not bring him up to talk about you. We've been talking for an hour and you haven't come up at all. He was referring to a gentleman that we did a panel with yesterday, and he made the comparison to you. I feel like, and actually I discussed this at the end of the panel that we did yesterday, I feel like I wish, and I've said this to Tommy, and I've said this to other people, I wish I could just make peace in this situation. Because me personally, having spoken to him many times in front and behind the camera, I know that he's not a bad person. But I feel like it's very hard to, and I see him reaching, do you know what I mean? Because he has been trying to do work with like different people. Sometimes he tries to take different approaches. But I feel like he is so hated that it's hard to reconcile anything when people hate you so very much. Do you know what I mean? They hate him to the point that I'm like a really chill person. And because I won't hate him too, people literally stalk me to hate me because I won't hate him. And I mean, that's just like a whole nother level. And so when I try to, if I, let's say, because I don't have a problem with him, right? So if I go to him and I'm like, Tommy, like maybe we can mend this or something like that, it can't be done because everybody's heart is not in the right place. I feel like this is an ongoing beef, and I wish that it weren't that way. I wish that, I even think that with Obsidian too, like with the rhetoric that he has. You know, when he came onto Nyla's panel the other day and everybody was immediately just outraged that he was there, and I was in the chat and I was like, let's give him a chance. You know what I mean? But then if everybody is immediately aggressive, that gives a person no space to do anything but be aggressive back. That happened to Cynthia when she was in my chat when you and her were on the show the other day, and I had to make a whole video telling people, please don't do that when people come onto my platform. Like, she came on, and because people feel some kind of way about her rhetoric, it just took her to say one thing that wasn't even anything for people to just be ready to start a whole fight over the use of the word seed. Do you know what I mean? And it's like, I don't know. It's like, it's very hard because I feel like, you know, I feel like sometimes we don't give people the space to exhibit the goodness in them because we get caught up in the anger of the situation. I don't know. And I feel like it feeds into itself. Like, it's unfortunate because Tommy comes through to my channel every now and again that he came here, and then like in the comment section, people were saying bad things about him. And then that was easy because of that to misconstrue that, you know, the conversation was about him. Do you know what I mean? And then he pulls back out again.
I
And
mean, I really have nothing to, like, to me, children like that just need to be ignored. And so I'm on to the next subject.
yeah. Well, with that said, I think that you are right about us having just like a forgiving, sort of nature. Um, I know I always look for the good in people, and I try to bring that out of them. Like, that's always my goal when I interact with people. Um, and I think that you're really on point with, as far as our children go, reaching toward our children, because I know there's a lot of people that have an attitude that other people's children aren't my problem. Do you know what I mean? And they feel like, I think there's a term called the cleanup man. Have you heard that term?
I heard somebody said on a channel, like, and they were talking about, I'm not helping nobody else's kids or something like that. And I was like, that's crazy.
Yeah, they call it like being the cleanup man in the community. Would you say that a part of Black power is recognizing that we have a responsibility to Black children, not just the ones that we birth, but Black children on the whole?
Of course. That's just an alignment with our, our ability to be frutacious in the future. If we want to be productive, it's based off of what we're going to do in the future, and the children are the tool to be productive in the future. One of my students is in the chat room right now, Sean Brown's daughter, Kenya. You know what I mean? Like, this is what I look forward to, being able to look up and see people that I'm helping and people that we're working with. And another thing in the room, back to this, I don't co-sign bothering people by the complexion. So I don't co-sign calling anybody, high yellow, crispy, and any of those derogatory terms when it comes to Black on Black love. That's what, and I don't use that. If you a derelict, I just call you a derelict. Yeah.
So do you think that men that have that view, do you think that their viewpoints, do you think like a viewpoint like that, like Blacks shouldn't reproduce or we shouldn't be accountable for each other's children, do you think that means they're anti-us or just confused?
I think some people are not acclimated to proper planning and goal setting and assessment prior to creating a goal. And you see a lot of people, like, when they buy a house and they're like, y'all want to do this, I want to do that. And it's like, did you look at the house? Did you look at the boilers? Did you look at the area? Did you look at the structure of the house? And we have to, have an eye like that with it. Yeah. So with that being said, we have to create ideas that we analyzed and actually researched ourselves and that we can actually embark on ourselves. So saying that you want to slow down the birth rate amongst Black children, that's something that if you feel is so important, you should do it. For me, I feel as though that because there are so many Black families and Black people have sex continuously, that it doesn't make sense doing that. For me, it makes sense finding ways to empower the families to make more responsible decisions and find ways to provide the families with more resources to help them sustain themselves while doing that. And on top of that, the ultimate tool that slows down and manipulates the birth rate in a positive way is education. And being about Black empowerment, you have, that to me, that's where it's at.
I think that is dope. And I'm sorry for that like little bout of like negativity. Like, that's never the goal. With that said, I am getting my call. Did I tell you I have a son that's in Japan?
No, yo.
Yeah. So my eldest child He is in Japan currently, out there going to school. He's studying Japanese, among other things. He speaks like 5 languages. So he was just
Nice.
calling me. So I'm going to get up with him. And I know that I kept you over. I told you I would keep you like for an hour. And I
That's
kept
what I do. We vibing.
I kept you for a little longer than an hour. But I appreciate you taking the time. And again, I apologize for that situation. Like, the goal is just never to have any kind of negativity going on. And you guys, several times in the chat, uh, the uh, the place where you can donate if you want to help out Q Butter's Institute and the work he's doing with youth have been put there. I don't know if you're able, because you do financial literacy counseling, I don't know if there is a contact or a link for that. Is there anything that we can put in the chat for the people?
Right now, you can go into the website, Zias.com, and when you go to the Institute, it'll be underneath Project Flip. I did just purchase a new website, and I'm editing it, and hopefully before the end of the year, before the next year, I will have that up, and so you will be able to go into the new site about Project Flip, and I'm gonna have way more information though. Hayawatha, I don't know how to. You asked the question.
Oh, what's your question? I didn't see it. Let me see.
Yeah, I didn't
How
really.
do you feel about? Did you read it?
I didn't see it.
It says, how do you feel about our children in the foster care system? I want to adopt, but have so much pushback with Black men adopting our children already in the system.
Well, adoption and the foster care, I know, is slightly different. But if you want to adopt and that's something that you want to do, I implore you to do it. Foster care is different. So if you're dealing with foster care, you're not so much adopting the children, so to say, as you're providing a place for the children to be at and the children to stay at, and the state pays you to take care of those children. So if you're thinking about doing foster care, I would suggest telling your mate about the, not to say like that, the financial benefits of being a foster care parent, because like I do have friends who do that. And if I'm not mistaken, it's almost $2,700 a month, plus they give you other benefits. They really do help you out a lot. And now adopting, I plan on adopting. First chance I get with a bigger house, when I go down south, I'm going to adopt children. And, I see all the children in my program as, my kids. And so I'm definitely about that. If you have a space and you have the time and you have the resources, yes, please adopt a Black child. And brothers, children are not something to be scared of. They're not difficult. And as long as you got a good woman, it's not that difficult. And yes, there are tons of beautiful Black women out there who are powerful, educated, and willing to be submissive just as much as you're willing to be submissive to them, and build a beautiful relationship. And so, yes, if you have that going on, adopt children. Do it as much as possible. I also saw somebody in there that said they were trying to work their way off of Section 8. Yeah, Section 8, you can pass Section 8 on to your children. You can also use Section 8 in many different ways. So I would suggest think about the other aspects of the benefits of Section 8, because you can just have your Section 8 put on a very minimal level and they'll just be paying a small amount. But if you ever run into needing help, or if you have, I believe how it works with your children, you can pass the Section 8 on to someone else, and it makes it a lot faster for someone else to get it. That's just, knowing the system part. Someone asked me, why do I wear gold teeth? That's because I'm
really.
Yeah, I think it was deleted by Fonda, but it's cool.
No, there's a couple of you have some trolls too that just randomly pop up, so you don't have to answer that if you don't want to.
No, it's cool. Yeah, I wear gold teeth. If you look at Q Butter, they said that I wear gold teeth. I ain't even wearing my tops right now, but yeah, I wear gold teeth. I got my high school pictures from like '98. I got driving license pictures with gold teeth. Like, that's just who I am. You know what I'm saying?
Okay, well, hopefully with the gold teeth that answer all of your questions. And with that said, thank you so much once again. Thank you guys for coming out, all 70 of you. And Warwick, do you work for Book Boom? Do you own Book Boom? Tell us so we can support your Black business, because you have advertised this flipping site so many times in this chat. So with that said, QButter, thank you so much, you guys. Support QButter's channel. It will be in the description box in just a second. You can see if you want to donate to the Institute that it's there. You can go to the website to find out about any financial literacy programs. He's very open if you are serious, like don't waste time, and you're looking to do work in your area. He's always open to people who are serious about doing that. So feel free to check all of that stuff out. QButter, thank you so much for gracing my channel. I really appreciate it. And with that said, bye, y'all.
Peace, y'all.